Good morning, everyone. How are you? My name's Eric. I'll be doing the seminar this morning on roof maintenance and care. You'll hear us talk about roof maintenance a whole lot. It's probably one of the most important things you can do as an owner. And there's several reasons. Expansion, contraction, and of course road travel. And the UV rays from the sun. All those play a factor into some things that can happen on our roofs. So let's start by talking about the roof. A lot of people think when you say the roof or rubber roof, you're talking about everything that's up there. Actually, what they're talking about is this part of the roof. This is a piece of rubber roof. See, it's black on the back side, white on the front. Of course, it's laid out flat. It's usually a water-based glue is what holds it down onto decking or luan. Now, the white on top, this part is the sacrificial lamb, if you will. The sun bakes the top of these campers. The sides, you've seen the plastic get yellow, and you might even see like chalk running down your camper after it rains. That's the white residue coming off. So when the sun hits it, it reacts and it stops the UV rays from damaging the rubber underneath. Now over time, in the reaction, this starts chalking and eventually it will go away. But that's how the rubber roofs, the actual material, is designed. Now these come with like a 12 or 15-year warranty on your roofs on these new campers. What their warranty is on is this piece right here. None of the sealers, nothing else, just this piece here. And even neglected, this will last a long time. But the sealers on the roof will not. And what I mean by sealers is it's what we seal the antenna, the skylight, the roof vents, the transition pieces with. All right, now, to check the roof, we need to get on the roof. Not all roofs are walkable. So first thing to do is find out if you have a walkable roof. If you have an ultralight or a mini, you really need to check first because a lot of those are not walkable roofs. Most of your big fifth wheels and stuff will be. And even when you get up there on the roof, you can kind of see where the trusses are and it will give. A piece of plywood with some carpet on the edges to distribute the weight helps. And definitely want to be safe when you're up there. When it's wet in the morning, it's not a good time to get on the roof. So, when you are checking the roof or the seams or seals, it is a product on a rubber roof called Dicor. Now, this is a really sticky substance. There's a non-sag and a self-leveling. And if you've ever looked at any of this stuff, you see how it's flowing out and kind of smooth. Now, over time, it's going to get hard. The UV rays cause that. In the wintertime, it's going to expand. The whole camper will. It will contract toward spring and summer. Now, that rubber roof is not going to split open during expansion or contraction. But when the sealers get hard, they will crack open. That is why every brand that I know of has a little sticker like this before you walk in the door. Important, check your seams and seals every 90 days. That's the manufacturer in a nice way saying, hey, this is not a warrantyable item. This is a maintenance item. So, with that being said, at least 3 times a year, you know, when you de-winterize, when you winterize, are excellent times to check the roof. After a trip, say from here in Evansville to the Smoky Mountains and back, it's a good idea to check the roof. Also the sides of the unit. Now, if you get up there on the roof and you find a crack on the front transition piece, clean the area You can use a little mineral spirits, a little alcohol swab, something like that. Dicor is a really sticky substance, so it doesn't have to be that thoroughly clean to fill in a crack. And then you'll use the self-leveling Dicor, just apply it over the crack. Generally on newer units, even 4 or 5 year old units, that's all you're basically going to find. When you're up there walking the roof, there's some areas like on a pull behind trailer, this area right here, or what they call a travel trailer, you'll see these little spots right here crack open more than anything. Fifth wheel in the same spot. This is basically where our front cap meets the rubber roof. So a lot of twisting action goes on there, especially when we're pulling them. Little hairline cracks, it's not going to hurt to feel them too if you have a concern. But it is very important to check and look for those stress cracks in it. Now over time, as we talked about, the sun, you know, bakes it and it gets hard, it'll start cracking really deep, and you'll see several on the roof. When it gets to that point, we need to clean the old Dicor off and apply new. That's not a fun job, by no means, but it's something that really, really needs to be done. You will hear about some items like a Turnabond. They say you can just put over the seals and not have to worry about it anymore. Here at the dealership, we do not use that unless we have to, like a rip in a roof, something along those lines, or keeping one dry while we're waiting on the insurance company to settle. I personally, and this is my personal feeling, I think you're better off with the proper sealers and doing your correct maintenance. Also should help with the value of the unit too, keeping it at the factory. Now, is there any questions on the Dicor or the sealers on the roof? Yes, ma'am.
How do you get the old off to repair it?
Okay, she's asking how do we get the old Dicor off to apply new. There's a little glass worker's tool called a Putty Buddy. It's a little plastic tool. You can even get them in Rural King and Harbor Freight and places like that, so it doesn't scratch the sides. You can use it on the sides and the roof. The best way is to take the tool and start digging it out. Now, it's going to be tough. So a little heat helps, but too much heat can damage. So like a hair dryer on a low setting would be acceptable to heat up the area, and once it starts heating up, it will start coming off a little easier. Don't use a heat gun. Even with a dryer, it's going to take a lot more time, but use it on low. Once you have got the bulk of it off, clean the area, and then usually if I have cleaned all the way down, I'll use the non-sag Dicor first to go around and seal the antenna or skylight. Then after you lay a bead of that, I'll go over it with the self-leveling Dicor. And that gives you a finish like you see on this board here. And it's a time-consuming job. But there is some ways to extend that, and we're going to go over that too. So, any other questions on the Dicor? Now, before we skip too far, I think we have some people with some fiberglass or metal roofs. Product called Flow Seal. And there is some other products like one by Alpha for fiberglass. I didn't have a tube this morning, or I'd had it out here. So this is made basically for a metal. This will work on fiberglass also. But Flow Seal is really runny. I mean, it's almost like a liquid when it comes out. And that's why it's called Flow Seal. It really flows out. A little different product than Dicor. It gets hard, and it's supposed to over time. And it will crack open too. The Flow Seal, I would recommend before using it to try a little spot on something so you can see how it flows when you put it out. You don't want it running down the side of your unit, if possible. Everything on those roofs will be sealed in with that. And of course, underneath everything, even on the sides of the camper, you're going to find butyl tape. Same with those. Any other questions on the roof part of it? All right. Now, as far as care for the roof, this product here, called Protec, is a two-part cleaning system. The first part is a cleaner and conditioner for the rubber roof. Keeps the rubber soft and pliable so it can expand and contract and do what it needs to do. And it's an excellent cleaner too. Second part of that kit is a UV protectant. That's the key part. Now, everybody dealt with black streaks on the sides of the camper? Black streaks come from the roof. Dust and dirt settles on the roof, dew settles on the roof, and it repeats itself and repeats itself. Then it rains and all that washes down the side. So the cleaner you keep the roof, the cleaner the sides of the camper are going to be. Now, this product, again, I usually wet the roof down, then dilute step one, give it a good scrubbing, and get the correct brush. This one is made for rubber roofs. You wouldn't want to use this on the sides, but this is made for the rubber roofs. Does an excellent job. It's fitted so you can get you a handle for it. Wet the sides of the camper down. Wash the roof. Rinse the sides of the camper down. Don't let that stuff sit on there. After the roof dries thoroughly, you just use a little sponge, throw away kitchen mop, and apply step two, the UV protectant. That's a big key. As you heard me say a couple times, the sun UV rays is what dries everything out. So if we're protecting against that, we're going to extend the life of the roof and the decor. Generally something like that, the UV part, once a year. If you store inside, maybe once every 2 years. It's really going to depend on how you store your camper. If you can't store it inside, a cover is always a good investment. Be sure and get an RV cover though. It won't hurt the finish on the camper, like a tarp or something would. Now, when this dries, you'll see a difference and you'll feel a difference in the roof. And when it's wet in the morning, definitely don't get on it because it'll be slick. Almost like after waxing your vehicle and it comes the rain. We've used it here for years. I do highly recommend that. Some people will say to do it more than that. Like I say, it really depends on how you store the camper. Roof cleaning. Any questions on roof cleaning? Pretty simple and straightforward. Now, if you bought an older camper and you get up there and check your roof, and it should look white or somewhat white, and you get up there and it looks like this, and we see them come in like that, all the white is gone. It can still be repaired. That's where you have rubber roof coatings. This is basically the white in a can, to put more on there. Like I say, those products are made for the roof that's went a little too long without any care. It does do an excellent job though. Now, back to this stuff, the Eternabond stuff. It's pretty handy, especially if you travel a lot, to keep some of this with you. You ever been to a campsite and the trees are kind of low, and the limbs are, and you kind of had to drag a limb coming in and out? Sometimes dragging that limb tears that rubber roof. That's when I like to use a little product like this. And there's no sense replacing a whole rubber roof for a little pinhole. They do make smaller versions of this, like a little kit you can keep in your toolbox if needed. the sides of the campers. Silicone. Works on fiberglass or aluminum. Some campers, our little display has both versions. Like on these front pieces, you'll just see this putty sticking out. Some models you'll really see it sticking out. That's a butyl tape. So all these transition pieces on the sides, underneath the shore cord hatches has the butyl tape, and then a lot of times you'll see silicone over the butyl tape. Here we use GE2 silicone, 100%, and you can get it in all different colors. Over time, this butyl tape will crack. Silicone can too, but this definitely will 4 or 5 years. So if your camper has that and you see a bunch of cracks coming up through it, you can take that Putty Buddy tool, trim it back, and then we can apply silicone right over it. A little trick, if you're not real good with a silicone gun or caulking gun, tape it off with blue painter's tape so you have nice straight lines. Fill it in with silicone, then pull the tape off, and it will look like a factory job. A lot of windows, you're going to see that they just go around the top with silicone, and you'll see a foam type substance on the sides. You can fill those in with silicone too if you think it's leaking. The sides of the unit, on pull behinds, it seems to be right here in this area where we see a lot of things opening up. In some older campers, you might open up the front compartment and see where it's kind of waffled and water damaged. They do a lot of twisting there sitting on that A-frame. Fifth wheels, where the front of the camper goes over the truck, that thin spot right there and that big front end, that's where they twist. And you'll see older fifth wheels on that piece where you'll see water damage and splits and flakes from that little corner. Again, you want to check the whole camper, but there is certain areas you'll notice that split open more than others. Now, the sides of the unit, is there any questions on it? So on the sides, we're basically walking around, looking at the putty, looking at the sealers. You see any cracks, apply silicone over it. Now the other part of this little sticker is seals. Seals, there's a few different styles. What we're talking about is slide room seals. There's generally a flap seal that flips back and forth when the room goes in and out, and a bulb seal. So when the room closes, it squishes against the bulb seal. Some campers actually have 2 sets. Depends on the brands. Now, these two over time will get hard from the sun. They'll turn kind of gray, and you can definitely feel a difference. So there is a product called Seal Saver. We've used here for years. Spray on the seals. It will foam up. It penetrates in. You don't have to wipe it down or anything. We'll keep it new and pliable. There is some other alternatives too that work very well. Now, also when we're checking our seals, sometimes these rooms get out of adjustment. So the gap on the sides of the slide room, we want to look at that too. We want to make sure that our seal's touching the slide room wall, or that it's not shoved, the room has not went all the way to the back of the camper and doesn't have enough room for one of the seals to flip. Those slide room adjustments need to be checked. Because of road travel, they do get out of adjustment, especially if you hop a curb or something like that, you know, it can happen. So while you're looking at your seals, be sure and look at your gaps. If you can at the top, check that too. There is an adjustment for the room this way, where the room can fall down and the top seal not be touching. Unfortunately, slide room adjustments are just like seams and seals, not a warrantable item. Here at American RV, all of our new campers, you know, for that first year, we're still going to take care of that, and I think most dealerships do. But it's actually not a warrantable item. If you look underneath, most of them, there's a few different styles of slides. Nowadays, about 3 we see the most of. They operate a little different. The slide rooms with the little aluminum bars on the sides is called a Swintech. I don't see it get out of adjustment from the seals too much. It's affixed with 4 tracks running it. Now the bigger slide rooms that just have the 2 big racks underneath, those, you know, probably see a little more adjusting for those. If you look underneath, you'll see a set of bolts for up and down and back and forth. If you have some tools and are fairly handy, it's really not that bad of a job. If it is a Swintech or something like that, that first year of warranty is when you should catch something like that. So there is different styles in your manuals, in your books. Look and see what style of slide you have. And while we're talking about slide room adjustments, if you do have the Swintech that I'm talking about, operating that slide room is what keeps it timed in place and how you operate it. Most of the time when we push a button, the room goes out or the awning, whatever we're messing with, as soon as it reaches its spot, we let off the button. Well, with a Swintech slide room, it actually has 2 motors instead of 1. So when operating that style of slide room, hold the button down and let the slide go all the way out and let the slide shut itself off. The motors stop running, everything's quiet, and then let off the button. That will keep those motors in time and keep the room straight this way. Same way when you're coming all the way in with that room. Let it shut itself off, then let off the button, and that will keep it timed. That's the biggest thing on those style of slides that we see out of adjustment. Any questions on your slide room seals or operation? All right, now underneath on the slide rooms with the big metal arms that have the cogs underneath, they'll need lubrication. I think once a year is usually plenty. Apply this to the cogs, the wheels against the frame where that whole rack goes in and out. Hey, this is also good for your door locks, your fold down steps, all that stuff. It doesn't attract a lot of road dust. Once a year on that generally is enough. Now, is there any questions in general? Roof maintenance, upkeep, very simple. Again, manufacturers say every 90 days, at least when you de-winterize and you winterize. And you might say, well, I just did it when I winterized it. Why do I need to check everything when I de-winterize it? Well, over the winter, it expands. So when you pull it out, take the time and check your camper over. It's also a great time to operate your appliances for the season before you hit the road. Now, vinyl inserts are another part to help keep water out of the camper. Vinyl inserts are little pieces of plastic you'll see on corner beads or transition pieces from the roof to the side. The sun over time shrinks these up, dries them out. They are very easy to replace. And what this does is underneath here is a bunch of screws. And of course, as I said, it goes through the butyl tape. This is another barrier to keep the water from leaking through those screws. And over time, you'll see it shorten up on the ends. Keep an eye on that also. As I said, this one's kind of short. It's not a whole lot to go over. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. It's not about the roof, it's about the windows.
Okay.
You see how the frame, it's the softer part, but it starts to shrink up. wondering if you can see it curve in on the windows.
Okay. She's asking a question about what's called the window gimp. It's a little rubber seal that goes around the glass and the metal frame of the window. It also draws up over time. And sometimes you'll see a gap where it's split. Well, the gap's not too awful bad. You can order new rubber to replace that. Or pull it out where it starts and push it back in place, and then you'll have a little gap, say about like this. And you can apply some black silicone. Will work just fine for time, but it will continue to shrink, unfortunately. But it is removable and replaceable. It will make your hand really sore doing it, but it can be done. Any other questions? Everybody good? Well, remember folks, checking the roof is very, very important. It can also be dangerous, so be safe. If it's not a walkable roof, get a ladder and somebody to hold the ladder. Nothing's worth getting hurt over. If you don't like heights, bring it to a dealership or RV place. We check them all the time here for people. It's not that expensive and very important. You get a water leak in your roof, it gets in that insulation and stuff, and it's not any fun. Well, that is about it on roofs. There is some accessories I like on the roof. This one being one of my favorite ones, the Max Air Cover. If you don't have one, I would definitely get one. These go over the roof vents on the campers. So have you ever been driving by and y'all own campers and you see your neighbor down the block or two, his camper's sitting there in the driveway with the roof vent wide open and it's raining? See it all the time. If you got this, that ain't gonna happen. Second, the UV rays attack these plastic pieces too, and that's really thin. They disintegrate over time, and a lot of times you'll lose it in travel. I've seen them come in here, they're coming back from Florida, lost one, and come in the rain the whole way, burnt the bedroom. It blew off in the winter. And I don't check my camper in the winter, and I go out there in the spring, and my whole bathroom is full of water and leaves. Stop that. The other thing you can do with this is when you're camping, even if it's raining, you can open your roof vent. When you're traveling down the road, if you have this, you can leave your roof vent open. And when the camper's just sitting in storage, you can leave your roof vent open. This is really nice in the summertime when it's 95 degrees outside and it's 130 inside the camper. Leave a couple of these open, it lets the heat escape. These are like 30-40 bucks. They're very easy to install. They don't mount into your rubber roof at all. They mount into this metal piece for the roof vent. One of the best accessories you can get, in my opinion. Any other questions, guys? Yes, sir. The plumbing cover, you can tell. Over time, they will get really brittle. Eventually, you'll touch it and it'll just kind of fall apart. You'll see it starting to yellow and even some cracks appear in it. These are really inexpensive, and you don't have to replace the whole piece. The actual cap just comes off, and you can get a new cap for it. You definitely want to have these covered, because inside of that is a little 1.5-inch pipe, and then there's a bigger hole than that. So if that cover's not on there, the rain's going to go into the camper. Yes, sir. Jim is asking for winter storage where it's better to level the camper or leave it with a little tilt toward the rear. I prefer leaving it with a tilt toward the rear. That's just going to help get snow and things like that off the camper a little quicker. As far as setting it level, I don't know as it would hurt anything. That's just the way I do it. It's the way we usually store everything here also. Okay, she is asking if it's okay to leave your slide outs for storage. Yeah, I mean, you're going to get, if it snows, you're going to get snow on top of those. The sun hits the snow and then it freezes again and kind of makes ice, and it will kind of start getting up underneath that seal. And eventually it'll melt away, but if you were to try to bring that room in at that point, it'd probably tear that seal up. I would prefer it be closed, but now a slide room should not leak all the way open or all the way closed. But you take that snow freezing and stuff happening, there could be a chance. And if possible, a lot of people don't think about it, but in the winter, go by and check on the camper. Open it up and go in it. In the winter time, there could be mice that have gotten into it. You might have forgot one cabinet and left a bunch of canned goods in there that froze and busted. I mean, there's a lot of things, but keeping the camper totally empty for storage is the best thing, and some kind of mice deterrent depending on where you store it. But even toothpaste and all that kind of stuff, it's going to freeze over the winter and thaw and freeze, and it's not going to be good just to get it out before you put it up. Any other questions, guys? Anything not related to roofs? Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Everybody stay safe. And I'll be around a few more minutes if you have any questions.